Hi, I'd like to read an excerpt, a passage from my upcoming New York Times bestseller. Right now, it's in my head. It's about the memories of a female who was accosted or essayed on a plane. Les was listening to the TJ Morning Show and trying to make up her mind about what to put on for her meeting. She was glued to the radio in the interview of Mrs. Anika Noni Rose by Sybil, Tom's longtime sidekick and all around resident comet and intellect. She was describing a horrifying airplane scene and an app she developed as a consequence. Holding up two clothing choices, let's pause to hear more. Apparently, the actress was a victim of suffering a physical and sexual assault while aboard a commercial flight. She related that while she was dozing under a blanket and covers, that the person in the assigned seat next to her tried to undo her clothing. She had awakened with the woman's hand unbuttoning her blouse, which was in disarray with all but one button undone. Let's listen with sustained horror and repulsion. The lawyer in her was always thinking about the language of events and how it tinted understanding. She thought, okay, what would be the perception of a physical attack versus or in addition to a sexual attack? How would the law even define this type of sly violation that a person has endured that changes them forever? To be outright physically attacked, the unwanted touching of one's face, feet, hands, hair, what? What part of the body? As questionable. How would a victimized individual describe a sexual assault? Touching of breasts, mouth, private parts? Would below the knees be considered private or privileged parts? The language and labeling even invited circumspect or derision. Leslie's mind spun just from attempting to find the proper words to vicariously articulating what had occurred. Assault or attack, she further mused. Which is more profound or proper to use and acceptable? Imagine not only being touched, but having the obligation of explaining the unexplainable. She shook her head and tried to listen more attentively about the app that was being proposed. The actress was summing up her spiel by saying that it was an app that could be downloaded for free when on airplanes or trains or public transportation vehicles. It was a device for basically any mode of transportation in the public domain. And it was designed to do two things: alert the owner is sleeping by alert when the owner is sleeping by monitoring their REM and the lowering of blood pressure, which is indicative of the sleep state, and two, to detect threatening or invasive closeness of a person, like a motion detector, and it starts loud beeping, Tom surmised respectfully. You need any investors? How's your financing? Are you GoFunding this? Have you kickstarted this yet? A GoFundMe page was generating a lot of interest. Les knew that she wanted in on this invention and envisioned how it could serve as an alert of sort across all sectors: men, women, children. The truth was that she said a group of security analysts were willing to sponsor her along with tech giants from Silicon Valley. Let's recognize a name or two that she stated and picked up the phone to harvest more information from her network. The conversation continued on for a few more minutes, and Let stood almost rooted in place at her closet door. For she knew that it was not pure coincidence that she'd heard this information and allowed herself to go back and think about what's happened to her some years ago. She did not often indulge in the victimization process and rarely allowed herself to think on it, banishing it at the threshold of her psyche. She did want to invest in this venture and find out more about it. She tried to banish the epilogue of Mrs. Rowe's closing words of what prompted her to create this besides the obvious. It would ease her mind and compartmentalize it, quote, so I can continue to function, end quote, if she knew it wouldn't happen to someone else. Her being assaulted on a plane by a stranger after she had fallen asleep was still vividly alive to her. The physical and sexual and emotional assault of a person alone, either literally or figuratively, can trigger and foster PTSD. Suddenly, it was comprehensible to her why people couldn't leave their homes or even get out of bed. There were moments out of her control that her fear transformed into a rage, diffusing her to a powerless feeling of nothingness. She was at times surprised that she managed to get out of bed to face the world again. She was at frequent times hoping that she would be able to sustain her sense of well being, but wondering, what if? She recalled waking up and a hand was on her blouse and seeing the person next to her look around. It would take a second or so to come to her senses, and her reaction when she saw that it wasn't a dream was to scream and hit and flail while pushing toward the center aisle from the window. She didn't know what she began screaming, but at her insistence, the plane was returned to Chicago, and she filed a police report. No way was she going to stay on an enclosed place with a molester. The people around were more peevish about their flight plans being interrupted than a black girl with nappy, coily hair sprouting about having her blouse unbuttoned and her clothes in disarray, while contrasting the accused, the lemon and peaches appearance of the statuesque female who denied anything had occurred and was waving her French manicured nails in possible explanation to those passengers around her. She's just crazy. She must have had some sort of dream. Besides, that was a whiter looking girl accused and demurely seated next to her, and her dismissal was more to be believed than the rants of the darker likes of her. Her outrage succumbed almost instantly to embarrassing silence, And the black Southerners in her used to say that she was, quote, causing a spectacle, end quote. She was able to identify the level of contempt that was manifested by her speaking out and yelling for help. To many, it was so unladylike, and the lowering of eyes and the casual, quiet, accusatory glances cast in her direction made her cringe and indeed question whether it had happened, or surely it wasn't as she thought it to be. May the Lord add a blessing to the reading of His Word for the edification of our soul for Christ's sake. Thank you. Like, subscribe, comment. Have a blessed day.